right, everybody. Our next guest is no stranger to this platform, no stranger to many of the activists and efforts that our sort of sphere of influence reaches here at BPM. And among many other things, Dr. Prosper is an activist and assistant professor of global and international studies at the University of California, Irvine, where her work focuses on Haitian social movements. She is also a member of Community Movement Builders and an always welcomed guest to this platform. Dr. Prosper, good morning. Greetings to you. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning. It's really morning for me. It's 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I know. And we appreciate the sacrifice.
I, I'm gonna try to bring all the energy I can. I haven't even had the coffee yet, so
Oh my
let's see what
goodness.
what I can do.
So we definitely appreciate what is definitely a sacrifice that you're making.
Yes. No, I'm
So
happy that you guys are giving me the space to talk.
no, anytime, and especially since you're bringing know what is going to be just a bunch of good news. All is well. Everything is good. No
Right.
problems. Problem
Yeah,
solved.
that's exactly
Everything's.
what I've come here to say. So, you
And
know,
please go ahead. I know what is
there,
the
there is
reality of the
a little
situation,
there
right?
is a little
Sure.
bit of good news.
Oh,
A
see,
little bit.
good. I mean, let's do it.
So, okay. I'm gonna give you the bad news first.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So, President Luis Abinader, who's a Dominican president, was at the UN 2 days ago in New York and essentially made a very long speech where he talked about, and he tried to explain why he had closed the border between Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And he said essentially it was because of gang violence in Port au Prince, which, if we had a chance to pull up a map, I know the folks who listen here are Google savvy, so pull up a map, right? Look at where Port-au-Prince is versus the border, and the point in the border that's in question. We're talking about hours and hours of driving distance, and even though, yes, indeed, the gangs are um, obviously terrorizing the people in Port-au-Prince, and I don't want to pretend that that's not an awful reality. Where the conflict is at the border is all the way north. So if you're looking at the map that I think Jared pulled out, Dajabon, for Liberté, around Cap Haitian, that's where, right, he's closed the border because there's several points along the border. Of course, he's closed the whole thing, but specifically that area is where the conflict is and why he's claiming he needs to protect. So let's talk about what's happening at the border in a little bit, but I want to talk about his remarks, right? So he talks about how Haiti no longer is able to deal with its problems, and essentially he backs up Biden's call, and Biden's making this call for a year and a half plus, right? They've been trying to do this since 2021, really. And essentially, Biden says, right, the UN must vote on a resolution to occupy Haiti. Russia and China have been holding out, right? They got their Ukraine beef, so they're using the Haiti piece, right, to stick it to the US. And they've been saying no to invasion. And of course, this is um, uh, different than the position they had taken in the past, where they did go ahead and vote on UN missions to occupy Haiti. And we can talk about, that timeline. And so Abinader comes up and essentially he says, right, Haiti's a pariah in the region. If we don't come in and we don't take control, right, these people essentially, right, don't know what they're doing, then we're going to have a problem in our hands. And basically, he's echoing what the Kenyans have said. There was a Kenyan delegation that came to Haiti few weeks ago, maybe a month plus ago, and they came to do recon work to figure out how they were going to be able to train the police, reinforce the police, and themselves, right, fight the gangs. They stayed at the U.S. Embassy the entire time, so it's very clear to us, right, who's really behind this effort. And I always come on all the shows, and I'm very clear that we can't give a pass to what I call the traitor Negroes, right? It's not because I'm saying, well, Kenya is just a puppet. They're just empty vessels of white supremacy, right? There is also something there for them to gain. In this case, right, Kenya I think it was also Jamaica, the Bahamas had proposed to lead such a mission. These are all countries who are trying to become, right, very important geopolitical players. And they understand that occupying a space like Haiti, which is viewed as unruly, right, would definitely be a check, right, on the list of look at all the things that we can do that really, points to us being global leaders, right? This is what Brazil did around the time that Haiti had its most recent occupation. We're talking about 2004, and I'll say 2004 marked the 200th anniversary of the Haitian Revolution. And it is that same year that an international community, right, would invade Haiti and at its head, we have Brazil and Chile. And of course, right, Brazil then becomes eventually, right, this major power that we're seeing today, 20 years later. And part of what, right, some of us are arguing is that this, being able to occupy Haiti was one way for them to signal, we can do it too, right? And so Kenya is entering the picture, right, because the Kenyans are making this move to appear as global players, more visible, etc., right? So, of course, it's if the U.S. and Biden keep calling for occupation, why don't they just do it, right? Like, why do they keep needing this global approval? And part of it is, right, how empire moves, right? It manufactures consent. It wants that to be able to justify itself. It has learned. So when the U.S. occupied Haiti in 1915 and brought, good old U.S. Marines from the U.S. South, Jim Crow, it was clear by the time it's coming back to occupy Haiti, right, and comes back with the post president in 1994, it puts up front Haitian Americans, right? By the time you come to 2004, Brazil is coming in to occupy Haiti, and they launch it with a friendly soccer match between the Brazilian national team and the Haitian national team. So at every point, right, empire is fine-tuning itself. It's understanding, to manufacture consent to get legitimacy, I have to be, right, mindful of these visuals, right? Which little puppet am I gonna place? And, to hide the fact that I'm really in control, right? And to make others feel like, well, this can't be an occupation, right? These were, for the most part, right, Black Brazilians who were in the country. So, of course, the idea that Kenya would come and join in the effort is just being understood as a Pan-African solidarity moment, right? And that's not the kind of Pan-African we're doing over here, right? So these are some of the things that, the dynamics that were unfolding in the UN. And Abinader, however, doesn't bring up, right, that on Saturday, September 23rd, it's the 10th anniversary of the 2013 constitutional amendment that was passed in the Dominican Republic, removing citizenship from Dominicans of Haitian descent all the way up until 1929. It doesn't mention that. He says there's no racism in Dominican Republic. Meanwhile, they are lynching Haitians, right? Especially dark-skinned Haitians all over the Dominican Republic, right? He doesn't mention that. He actually denies it when there's a young student who comes up to him. It's like, there's racism, we love the youth. They're always ready for some confrontation publicly, right? Like, Dominican Republic is racist. And he's like, no, we have some problems, but, we're not racist, right? He doesn't talk about the wall that the Dominican Republic has been building since 2022 between Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And where does he start this wall? He's starting the wall at this point that Jared showed a little earlier in the north of the country, which is where he claims he's most afraid that the gangs are going to come. And what is in this particular part of the border right now? And this is the way the little good news comes, right? Right now, there are thousands of Haitians at the border, and they have dug up a canal and they're building a canal themselves. We're talking about people are fundraising on social media, on the radio. Cars are passing by neighborhoods collecting $1. And there are thousands of volunteers that have come that are carrying cement bags, that are laying brick. Women, men, right? course, you have all the social media influencers who like run to be like, hey, I was here. But the fact is, there's energy and people are claiming this thing. And this is part of what we call combit in Haiti, which essentially is when it's never really in this many numbers, right? But when hundreds of people come together and usually they're farming each other's land, right? It's like, I'm gonna work your land today, you're gonna work my land later for free, right? And we do this, and of course, there's some singing, there's some dancing, there's some drinking, right? All of that. This is part of right coming together and making of a community. And usually it's a small scale project, right? We're talking about, you know, maybe hundreds of people. This time we're talking about thousands of folks, right? Who've come to the border. And why this canal? Why are they digging a hole and making a canal? So there's this river and it has multiple points, the beginning, but most of it, I will admit, begins in the Dominican Republic. It's 55 kilometers. I didn't get to translate into miles, but let's say, 60 miles, right? Long. And the Haiti side is only about 10, right? So it is very, very little. However, it's on the Haitian side. Why does this river matter? Because tapping into it would allow to irrigate, right? Like water farms on the side of Haiti. This is the same water that fuels, right? That waters farms on the Dominican side. So the Haitians have been, and actually the Haitian peasants, the Haitian farmers, organizing for 10 years, saying to the state, we need to water our gardens, right? We're saying Haiti has a problem of food production. This is the best land. We're ready to do the work. We don't have any water. We know, right? The government of this particular party that's in its third iteration now is like, yeah, sure, we'll do it. They do the plans, right? And people are saying, oh, is it made in Western standards, right? Because they see a whole bunch of like regular ass people, quote unquote peasants, making this canal. Yes, there's a plan that engineers and technicians, right, put together to build the canal. But what happened is every time the state, right, disbursed money to a company to build the canal, there are 3 times, 2 of which are done by the same company that actually is owned or was owned by the assassinated president before he came into power. They never make the canal. They take their money and they go, right? So the canal doesn't get done. The people are waiting, right? The farmers are waiting. They keep doing what we are told to do. They go to the state. They're like, we need this. Yeah, here's the plan. We got a company. Nothing happens. 10 years. And the people were like, you know what, fuck it. We're going to do this shit ourselves. And that's exactly what they did. They were like, you know what, everybody, we're going to need all of y'all to come down here because we're going to build this. So of course the Dominican side is like, this is only going to benefit a few private individuals. That's what capitalism does, right? But the canal may come to benefit some private individuals, but it's going to also benefit, right, these small farmers. And so these folks started building the canal about a week and a half ago, right? Thousands of people at the border, right? People are singing, people are dancing, people are bringing food, right? This is like ultimate acts of, right, solidarity all around. And people are giving out their money. Even on Facebook, they're posting, we need this number of sack cements, this number of this number of that. So if you have a private company that makes this stuff, donate. And people have done that. And even the person who's like jobless, who like barely has like a few bucks, right, is putting in the pot. So this is a kind of good news because it shows us, right, my anarchist dream, we don't need the state. When we decide we're going to do what we need to do for our survival, we're just going to do it, right? And of course, there's a whole diplomatic issue because people are saying, well, who has rights to the river? The DR has 11 projects on the river, including dams that could affect, obviously, the flow of the river into Haiti. They never asked, or at least if they asked the corrupt leaders that don't represent the people anyway, right? So now Abinader, the president of the Dominican Republic, says, how dare the Haitians, these anarchists, he called them, who are making this canal. Apparently they're calling it an artisanal canal because they couldn't believe that, right, Haitians anyway, right, could be capable of anything great, and that let alone that we would have engineers and technicians on the job, right? And so there's a little bit of that anti-Black, anti-Haitianism that is coloring, right? That is like, part of what people are saying. What they're really meaning is that we can't believe the Haitians is actually do some Western standard level canal, right? And not somehow deviate the river from making it to other farms on the DR side, right? But of course, what's also in that area where Abinader is privileging this wall, you have garment industry, right? They're using and depend on this river and this water. You also have mining projects in the same area, right? And if you look at the product that the Dominican Republic exports the most to the world, it's gold, right? Even in the closing of the border, small farmers on the Dominican side are essentially saying, right, this is going to hurt us because Haiti is the primary destination of Dominican food stuff. So there is a lot at stake about if we let the Haitians tap into the water and they start watering their own farms, they're not going to buy from us anymore. Right? So these are all parts that Abinader, of course, doesn't tell us in his speech, right? Because he's trying to portray a picture of complete anarchy and chaos in Haiti to justify that there would be an occupation that would protect all of the interests that are in that area specifically. And these are some of the folks who fund his campaign. And right now he's in the middle of a re-election, right? And so I bring you this terrible news, but I also bring you, like, on the flip side, the fact that we have thousands of people at the border doing the work that the state would not do, could not do, and they're doing it because they have to, right? Like when we come down to it, right, that they had to step up and take over. That's my whole spiel.
Wow. Diallo, did you have something? Did you want to jump in? Or Geechee, if you had a question, maybe you put it in the chat. I'll share it for you. But before I get to anything, Geechee is asking what happened at Columbia University recently.
Sure. Well, he came to talk at Columbia University. He's doing his rounds. And actually, this is where the student confronted him, obviously not at the UN. And, you had some Haitian diasporic folks who were there to protest and to bring this kind of message, to try to explain what was going on. But on the other end, you had Dominican counter protesters who were saying, we're here to defend our country, defend our president. Like, we think he's right. He's protecting Dominican interests, even though in the Dominican Republic, now trade unions and different farming organizations are saying this border closure actually hurts us, right? But you have a very different response, a very, nationalist, anti-Haitian response in the diaspora. And even though there were some Dominicans who had actually dropped this flyer calling for the diaspora, the Dominican diaspora, to come and stand against their president, they didn't show. And I guess, it's kind of tough if you're going to have to show up and confront, right, your own people over whether or not their president, is correct, and to be seen as potentially traitors of the nation by siding with Haitians. This is like a big thing, right? When Dominicans call out Dominican racism or Dominican rising fascism, they tend, and especially, through the lens of Haiti, they get called traitors. And this is like a major danger for them. For example, this Saturday, all their plans to do any kind of commemoration of this constitutional amendment that happened 10 years ago, they're not even sure that they're going to do any actions because they're concerned for their safety. That right now, skinhead fascist Dominicans are targeting them as pro-Haiti Dominican activists who are traitors to the nation. So this, this is real. It has real consequences when people stand in solidarity in certain places, particularly with Haiti. I see Geechee saying that the significance. Now, the Massacre River, that's the name that the river is given on the Haiti side. that on the Dominican side they call it the Dajabon River, and it has a longer history. But one of the reasons it's called Massacre River, it's connected to the 1937 massacre of Haitians by Dominican government, and then I think up to the 15,000. Um, so this is a particular significant site as well, right, of struggle today, thinking about this 1937 moment. So a lot of folks are very nervous because the Dominican Republic has sent their army. Imagine, we're talking about thousands of people unarmed, right, singing and building a canal, and then on the other end, Dominican army with all of their, security apparatus, doing all kinds of demonstrations of, to intimidate the people and to have them move away. So, some folks on the Haiti side, they're very concerned that there could be a massacre, right? Another one of all these people at the border. And they haven't left, eh? They're sleeping there. Like there's continual presence there to ensure that the canal is being done, right? And so there could be some sort of, I can't call it a confrontation, right? If the Dominican army attacks the Haitian people, it'll be just a massacre. There's no real fight, right? So part of bringing this message to y'all is to make sure that people are aware, people are paying attention, are tweeting, are talking about it, so that it doesn't, if we have any power to prevent it from happening by giving light to it, that we might be able to help the Haitian people finish their canal.
Wow.
I
Yeah. Mhm.
well, there's two specific things that you touched on that I'd like you to expand on. Number one, with the gang situation, whereas foreign imperialist powers are using the gangs as a justification or as a
Mm-hmm.
springboard for intervention, um, and it justify and on the ground, the gang leaders are asserting that they're providing vital services and fulfilling roles that have been abdicated by the state. So between those two conclusions and the Haitian people are caught in the middle, what how true or untrue are those assertions?
Right. So, we use the word gangs, and there are certainly differences between the groups. Um, the common thread is that they are for hire and will then do acts that are anti the people. But certainly, a lot of gangs are ones that have emerged out of certain communities, usually identified by some outsider, right, who's able to bring in the guns. So if you think about how colonialism worked, right? Like you needed collaborators, someone comes in and identify like who's willing to do my bidding, right? And carry this gun, um, and do the work I need them to do. Of course, some of them, because they're coming out of those neighborhoods, they did what they call to do the social, like what you're saying, right? That however they gain their money, they bring it back to the community to distribute food, etc. And this is how they also build their loyalty among, right, the people, their neighbors. There are gangs, however, because this has become, right, an industry, people who are trying to start off, right, who are identifying neighborhoods to take over. So they come in very differently than, right, gang leaders who emerge out of those particular communities. Of course, you also have gang leaders who are former police officers. So, right, so we're talking about people with a certain amount of training. And there's one of these former police officers everyone's talking about, of course, and who has backing from some international friends, so is able to craft his image, right? And people are calling, those people outside of Haiti, I will say, and outside of his particular community, are calling him, right, a revolutionary because he has the discourse, right, anti the state, anti certain oligarchs. But the verdict is still out whether or not he really is a revolutionary, because what his gangs are doing is not turning the guns against, right, the folks who are trading cars or sell, who control food distribution in the country. They're turning their guns against other gangsters in other little neighborhoods, and in the process, right, killing, massacring hundreds of other people. So, I know there's a way we have a reading of gangs in the United States, right, as sort of the evolving end of Black Power movements, right? And we were always sort of looking to explain that phenomenon in some ways, excuse these actions, right? Because we understand white supremacy and the effects of capitalism on communities. And so I know some of us want to use that lens to look at the Haitian case and see in these gangsters like potential revolutionaries, but in fact, on the ground, they're acting as paramilitaries, right? An unofficial arm of the state that's able to go around terrorizing folks, right? And the state doesn't have to claim it. The state is not gonna. This is not the police, right? These are random others who are creating this environment of terror. But if we ask the right questions, such as where are the guns coming from, right? When they're killing others, when they're massacring others, like what's at stake? Why those neighborhoods? Why those areas, right? Why are they not turning their guns against the oligarchs, against the imperialists, right? If we ask those questions, then we might be able to see more clearly what their role is as paramilitaries, and not use the same lens we might use to think about gangs in the States, right? So
Yeah.
I would push
Well,
us to do some.
but I think
Go
we
ahead.
I think we lost you. But I would definitely say I've been very vocal in my opposition to the fallacy of revolutionary gangsters or gangs being a force, a non-sanctioned frontline fighting force for any interest of black people, because just the history and the evidence doesn't bear that out. So the RBG
Yeah.
narrative here in the United States, and I saw that emerging in Haiti, and we've even had a lot of prominent black people um, that want to call them not gangs, but street organizations and give them street
Mhm,
tribes
mhm, mhm,
and try to
mhm,
give them an air
mhm.
of legitimacy as they prey on the people here in Chicago and other areas in the Chicago. So I'm with you on that. I don't even think that it's
Yeah,
appropriate to do
yeah.
that in the United States. I don't think they earn that
Mhm,
or portray that. The other thing I wanted you to speak on, where you literally said skinhead neo-Nazis, Dominicans, because here in the West, as I think, take position, we should be staunch allies of Haitians, of the Haitian revolution and struggle. Here, there's this another fallacy of black and brown unity. And there was just here in the States a man of Latin American descent who went and committed a massacre, and he was a Nazi. And I think we forget about the conquistadors. We
mhm.
forget that Spanish invaders. I even have to confront people that talk about Mexico, U.S. taking territory from Mexico as if Mexico wasn't a colony versus colonizers. And they take the side of Spanish colonizers against British colonizers instead of opposing all colonizers. So I really appreciate the fact that you're pointing out that the Dominican Republic is a colonial state still occupied and governed by colonizers, advancing the interest of white colonial um, racism, and I appreciate, so if you could go a little bit more into that fascism and racism and even Nazism is prevalent
Mhm,
amongst
mhm.
Dominicans and other people who we identify as Latino or Hispanic.
Mm. Dr. Prosper says she's going to check to move to another spot to see if we can get an improved internet connection. Um,
Mm,
I don't know. Look, I'll be honest. Sometimes I envy your clarity. I sometimes I feel like I get caught in some nuance and maybe too much. I struggle with the total condemnation of trying to address gangs in different ways. I've worked with people who attempt to refer to them as street organizations to better contextualize the origins of these formations and the work that some are trying to do with them and that some within those organizations are trying to do. Similarly, when it comes to certainly Latin America, race. Anyway, I only bring that up just to acknowledge my own. I don't know. I don't really feel like it's a lack of clarity so much as it's. Well, I guess it is in the sense that I don't have the. I'm not as. I guess yeah, I'm just not as confident and comfortable with the singular conclusions that you are able to draw in this and other cases. But I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I'm stuck where I am. And hold on, if Dr. Prosper, if you're ready, I think you're ready to come back.
Yes, I think
Okay, good.
what you're saying is so important because I want to make clear that I'm condemning this. However, if the Haitian people were to have complete control over their territory and have to reckon with this gang problem, what are we to do, right? Let's say you were to chop off the heads of all the gangs, but in fact, the gang members, as we know here in the States, are children. These are 17, 18, 19-year-olds, right? Most likely themselves victims of, right, sexual violence and other forms of violence, who saw in these gang leaders, right, parental figures. Growing up in Haiti, this was already happening, but certainly after the earthquake, too many children in the street who were parentless, right? And the state wasn't doing anything about it. And we all said, I remember being in a car, my parents said it. I remember being an adult. I'm bringing my child to Haiti, and she's seeing all these kids in the streets. And I'm like, what are these kids going to become? Who will they be? And this is part of the answer. Some of them made this choice, if you could call it a choice, right?
Yeah, it's not. It's
So when we talk about these gangsters, we're talking about people wearing, flip flops, holding guns sometimes just as tall as they are, guns that cost more money than some of them will ever see in their lifetimes. Their material conditions are not bettered, right? We're talking about some of them are doing daily kidnappings up to $200,000, right? Asking for ransom. That money isn't going into their neighborhoods to build housing, to build hospitals. It's going back to whoever controls the guns. So I just want to be clear that I do have a nuance about sort of what to do next rather than to say, well, are they gangsters? No, they are. They are doing some horrific shit. They're kidnapping people, they're raping people, they're killing people. I'm talking about chopping up body parts, right? So there is something deeply broken in these people because the country failed them. And this would be the option that they would have to take, right? You have people coming out of those same conditions who choose to do the community work instead without terror. And, we could talk about what makes a difference between the one person or another who makes these decisions coming out of the same, right, material conditions. But I do have a sympathy towards the fact that these are children, these are teenagers, right? And if the country is going to deal with itself, it will have to lay out a very careful, caring plan about what to do with all these young people, right? Young men, to not lose a generation of young people in Haiti. So I just wanted to say that, you know, um, yes, because in fact, right, they're still Haitian people, right? They're people who've been failed by the system. And so to just discard them would be no better, right, than the imperialists that we're always calling out, right? So I just wanted to say that. But in this moment, we need them to stop, right? Like, because they're not just sort of, doing, attacking other gangs. And yes, we know there are always bystanders. The bystanders at the number of 100, right? In this case. So they're not just fighting each other, they are also being used to vacate entire neighborhoods, right? Entire neighborhoods of people who are likely to be the ones protesting their fucked up conditions, cleaning out neighborhoods, right? Well, if we think about Haiti, the images that we've seen of the shanty towns, right? Like cleaning out those areas, especially one of the latest ones in areas that have been identified as being rich in all kinds of gold and other minerals that the international wants access to. So when we see where they are located in the country, what groups of people they're attacking, and how they're attacking people, right? Um, we have to ask those questions. Where do the guns come from? Who are they protecting, right? Whose agenda are they actually advancing here? Because I know from afar, we look into it and it looks like chaos and it looks like it's random and they're just terrorists, but in fact, it's targeted, it's planned, it's coordinated. It's coordinated to the point where they attacked one particular neighborhood in Port-au-Prince, and other neighborhoods that had prevented, essentially the gangs took over this other, if you were paying attention about what's happening in Haiti, they took over this major road where gas distribution, right, happens throughout the country to control, right, that asset. All of a sudden that area was open, and all the people who were being pushed out of their neighborhood were able to freely pass this area because the gangs there were told, let them pass because we're trying to move whoever's left hasn't been massacred out of this neighborhood. So I think those are the questions to ask about why the gangs. And I will say one last thing is that part of the gang response is a direct response to people protesting. So if you were paying attention in 2018 in Haiti, the country was shut down. This was since 1980s the first time one thing united all the people, and they took over all the cities of the country, and we're talking about up to the numbers, of 1 million. And they said to the state, where is the money that you were supposed to have invested into social programs, infrastructure, etc.? And after the first march, October 2018, that's said to have gathered 1 million people throughout the country in different cities, and they announced a second major protest, boom, first massacre. So we have to read the gang violence against years and years of what led to this 2018 peak moment and movement. And the state realized they couldn't just fight back, right? Militants, activists in the protests with police repression. They had to deploy this other hand that could apply this great force, right? Massacres, kidnappings, to tell people you need to shut the fuck up and sit down, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do, right? They silence the working class, they silence the poor, they silence even the middle class. There will be no complaints because this 2018 moment was such significant in our history in Haiti because it was a cross-class moment when significant numbers of people in the middle class understood that they needed to contribute to the popular demands about, right, making Haiti a livable place. And the gangs were a direct response to that. Kidnappings, right, of mostly targeting middle class people, massacres mostly targeting working class neighborhoods, right? That these are deliberate efforts to push back against demands on the ground for accountability and transparency at the level of the states.
Uh,
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we move on, I want to deal with these types of fallacies about gangs and the contributions of gangs to Black liberation and Black empowerment. Where this nonsense where Martin Luther King came to Chicago and the gangs protected him. When we look at the imagery and we look at the historical record, it was the Black labor unionist
Hmm.
that rallied. There's an iconic picture of Dr. King being literally pummeled by stones, and the man who is covering and chief of his security was my wife's grandfather, paternal
Mm,
grandfather. He was not a gang member. He did not support gangsterism, and they were unionist organizers, and many of them came out of the church hierarchy, the deacons and ministers. It was not gangs that protected a king, and we have evidence that the gangs actually threatened king and manipulated the larger movement. But not to take away, but these are the type of things we have to deal with when we talk about gangs and the black communities mythology that we've built up around gangs because we are such a weak people in the face of oppression that we love to see any type of um, pushback against our oppression, armed,
mhm, mhm,
militant,
mhm,
uncompromising pushback
mhm,
against oppression that we project our sympathies, our love, and our hopes onto factions that are armed, strong, militant, masculine, when those
mhm.
factions are not in any way representing or speaking to the interests or advancement of our people. So I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
appreciate that. And
And I've
I,
said this, the people who are building up this particular gangster who's the former police officer as a
right,
revolutionary, and he claims he doesn't do kidnappings and rapes. So I'm like, then what do you do? But he doesn't say what,
right,
his gang does specifically. But I mean, if we could flip him and he could be, he could run a people's army, then, people come to their revolutionary place from different points, right? Maybe, right? But the evidence is not pointing towards him, you know, taking on those who really actually have power in the place, right? But yeah, this is one of the things that I've talked to with my comrades in Haiti. I'm like, so y'all organizing your own liberation army? Like, what's the deal? What is this persistent and non-violent strategy that has gotten you killed? At some point, you're gonna have to make a very different decision and reposition yourself, like outside of the way that the West, right, has made any kind of armed revolution synonymous with like, this is scary. We don't do that anymore, right? And I keep thinking, what's happening in Benin and Niger and Mali may be a return to some of these um, ways of getting us closer to liberation that,
I,
maybe, those of us here
uh,
have
okay,
to reconsider, right? Like, what is this whole like non-violent thing? And the non-violence is gonna get you killed. It's getting us killed. And so, I asked my comrades. I know it's not, in style to talk about, armed revolution, but y'all getting killed. Like, you cannot respond to these paramilitaries with any kind of real force. But I'll say what's been happening in certain neighborhoods. And this is what I was saying to you earlier. Calling them all gangs just sort of flattens out the differences between them, right? But there are certain neighborhoods that are responding to the gangs that are trying to invade their neighborhood. So the neighborhoods that don't have gangs, right? That are maybe something like targets of kidnappings, they're saying, we're not going to stand for this. So a couple months ago, you may have seen this maybe in headlines. They're calling it Boakale, and we could talk about what that means, but essentially they're saying that this is the people's revenge, if you will. So in certain neighborhoods, people just came out with their machetes and with some rocks, and they were like, we're going to fight back, right? And in these particular areas, they're being organized by police officers off duty who have the training and who are saying, well, we live here and we're not going to let these dudes come in. They're not using guns that they've been given by the state. They're using either their own guns or machetes, right? So we're talking about people fighting with just their hands against folks with military grade guns because they're saying, well, we can't just lay down and get killed. We have to give a response as well, right? That's happening in certain neighborhoods in Port-au-Prince, like right now, the fight back. You're not seeing that anywhere in the news, right? Nobody's talking about that. But there is a response to the gang
well,
violence. It's not just a laying down and throwing up our hands and saying, please, go ahead and kill us and rape us. There are responses being given, but it's, the spirit of the response is great and the resistance, but it's laughable, right? Like I remember being in Haiti and I'm driving around and I had a machete. And my partner goes, "So, what, you gonna fight the bullets with that machete you got?" I was just like, I don't know, but this is my gun, right? I don't have a gun, but I have a machete. It's very Haitian, very Caribbean to carry around a machete as a weapon. But this is actually what folks are doing. I have cousins who are like, yeah, we're at home right now. And everybody's got their machete, like we're prepared, we're ready for like whatever confrontation, which would be a slaughter, of course. But people are not just, and I'll say this to you, it is actually, a lot of folks are reading the gangs as like imperialist tools. And it's quite sad that actually the fight, right, when it comes down to Haitians fighting for sovereignty, Haitians fighting for control of their country, that who we're standing up against are actually our brothers, right?
And
It's not an imperial army on the ground. It's one that's outsourced itself, right? Taking advantage of the misery to push Haitians to kill other Haitians, right?
appreciate that. And before you had the technical issues, you were about to respond to the whole Nazism
Oh
and
yeah,
fascism.
yeah.
And when people are in the Caribbean or south of the US Mexico border, they are white. But when they come into the US, they magically become brown. And that delusion, I think, confuses a lot of our ability to comprehend who's truly on our side and
Hmm,
who's
hmm,
truly do
hmm,
we have
hmm,
to
hmm,
oppose. So
hmm. Yeah, I mean, that whole brown, white, black thing. Remember the guy who was the Proud Boys head,
right.
like that, brown skinned Cuban, and everyone was like, I remember going, come on, you can't even pretend to pass for white. Like, what happened to you? You looked into a mirror and like you were like, this makes sense. I don't get it. No, but you do have deliberate efforts in the early 20th century, even 19th century, on the part of the Dominican state to encourage migration from Europe into the Dominican Republic to whiten out the country. And this is not unique to the Dominican Republic. All the Latin American countries, right, like had, campaigns for bringing in Europeans to whiten out their countries, right? Because they were facing a large indigenous African population, and they're like, oh, we want to be in the ranks of those up north, right? And we want to remain like a white dominated country. So there was an investment, right? And pulling those folks and calling them to come establish themselves in the Dominican Republic. You have a little bit of that happening on the Haiti side in ways we don't talk about, right?
Mhm.
In Dominican
Yeah,
Republic, it becomes a little easier because, they're so fair skinned slash maybe white passing, that the language of Nazism and skinhead we can use to talk about them. But in the same ways that you have these, state sanctioned vigilantes, right? And in Haiti, right, who are doing the work of the white supremacists, so like black people killing black people, right? You know, it makes sense that you would have white skinned, light skinned Dominicans um, uh, be a part of disciplining, right, the Dominican population and part of helping distance Dominican Republic and constructing it as white against a black Haiti. And the Dominicans are really invested in their being white and not being Haitian, right? Again, because of what that means on the global stage. Sorry, I thought we would be done, though I'm loving this. I have a crying baby. Oh. She's
Congratulations.
gonna she's
We
gonna pop
appreciate
up
that.
any minute now. That's why I'm
No
saying it.
worries.
She's gonna show
let's
up.
So,
call the
well,
nanny.
Oh yeah, I have one of those
Tell
at
the
well,
6:40 to,
40 in the
you know.
morning.
is there anything just in case that you would want to make sure you got in that you want to
Yeah,
reiterate in
I
case
guess
you have to jump off? Yeah.
just to come back to the question about occupation, right? That this is again something that Haitians on the ground are standing against, right? And I know if you draw a picture and you're like, well, gangs are massacring people and kidnapping people, the state basically it's just one person, illegitimate, they're not doing anything. So, y'all need backup, right? So why wouldn't you want an occupation? And to say that Haiti has been continually occupied over the last 120 years, there's a UN mission essentially that just pulled out some years ago that was there from 2004 to 2017. And yet, during the time of their tenure, of their being there, we saw cholera, we saw, right, women raped, and children who are born without any kind of paternal presence. And you have also the fact that now 500,000 guns illegally are circulating in the country. So the occupation was supposed to, at some point in its last phase, help to organize elections. But instead, we've seen that the UN has been a cover for this state to continually reproduce itself, right? Renew itself without going through elections, right? Because they tried the election route and they controlled it. And then when they tried this, so this is 2010 after the earthquake, they're like, yeah, we're going to have elections. Even though Haitian people were saying, we just went through a disaster, we need to beat. They were like, no, 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 we got to do this election. They throw in their guy, right? Their guy wins. When in 2015, new elections come around, everyone's like, no, we're not doing this because we already know you guys are going to manipulate the election and put in your guy. They do. The Haitian people shut down the country for a year to say we won't take a second version of this party. They run the elections again, and then they put the same guy. By the time he's assassinated, the prime minister who's now sitting in power was appointed by a guy no one even ever chose to begin with, and now is just reigning in the name of the Haitian people and is nowhere near announcing elections. Right? He's just sitting there. Everyone's like, wait, what's the length of his term? When is he going? Like, what's happening? But this UN mission is supposed to make sure that elections happen. The UN mission is supposed to be there to ensure democracy. There's no parliament since 2020, which means the executive, in the form of the prime minister, is the sole deciding decision making power in the country of 12 million people. But the UN occupation that's there in its more civil version, right? More, political version, was supposed to ensure elections, has not been able to do so. When the military forces were on the ground since 2004, they were not able. I don't even know what they came to do. They claimed there was a conflict they needed to resolve, but the conflict is poverty, right? And that wasn't resolved. And instead, we have 500,000 illegal arms in the country. And now we have, right, over, what is it? The number is outrageous, 100 gangs. Like, some of them are tiny, right? Sprawled out throughout the country. We've had occupation before. We know what it does. So, of course, the Haitians are like, what's that going to do? Right? And of course, that makes them sound fucking super ultra left crazy to some. And so you have a more liberal positioning, with some organizations that are like, well, no occupation, but can you like reinforce our police, right? So there is a little bit of nuance on the ground in terms of what we want, but the more radical faction of movement in Haiti is dominating the discourse today, I would say, in terms
Before you,
of,
um,
you know. So go ahead.
no, I just wanted before you leave because ZZ Lion again comes through with a strong super chat. Is could you read and, if appropriate, not tactically revealing, translate whatever is being said here? Um,
Yes, we met at the National
mm-hmm.
Black Organizing Conference, and I know I'm supposed to like follow up. I will be
Okay.
following up. But he
Okay.
says, bonjour, sac passé. So, good morning, what's up? Comment ye, how are you? Thank you for your work for Haiti, is basically what he wrote. So, thank you.
Right on. I didn't want to get the Google Translate out and start fronting, so But thank you,
No, Google
ZZ.
Translate for Creole is actually not that bad. So,
Really?
yeah, it's
Okay.
decent. You can get by with it.
I don't know that you have time to cover a question like this about the Haitian Army, Western Police. I'm not sure.
I can quickly answer
Sure.
it to say,
Wasn't it the West that abolished the Haitian Army for the Western Police? Can you
yeah.
cover that?
So the Haitian, the you know as I mentioned earlier, you have U.S. occupation of Haiti 1915. The U.S. is also occupying, sorry, Dominican Republic. It, has all kinds of interests in Panama, Colombia, Cuba, right? We know they're also in the Pacific Islands at the same time. So I just want to be able to say that I'm lifting up the U.S. occupation of Haiti in that moment, but U.S. is establishing its power and in the Pacific, in the Caribbean, in Latin America at that moment. And one of the key things they do, first of all, is bring Jim Crow. So imagine in Haiti, black ass country, they impose Jim Crow. First Black Republic. They're like, yeah, we're gonna bring this to this country, and they actually enshrine it in the 1918 Constitution, right? Because they'd say, what's this Haitian Constitution here? We got our own piece of paper. We're gonna run this, this show with. And one of the first things that they do is start training armies, right? Because as they prepare to leave, they need to train an army to replace them in order for the army to continue to protect the interests that they came to claim in the first place. So this army of Haiti is established, if I remember the dates correctly, 1924 or something like that, right? And essentially, when we look at the history of the army in Haiti, particularly during the dictatorship of the Duvaliers, they're there to kill and terrorize and discipline the population so that the Duvalier can, steal all the money of the state and allow certain, oligarchs to have whatever financial projects that they want in the space. This is the army that overthrows the first democratic elected president of Haiti in 1991, right? They overthrow him in 1991. The police also is collaborated in this effort. We tend to talk about it was the Haitian army that did it, but the police also was involved in this overthrow. So what happens in 1994 when the president returns is that he disbands the army. But he returns with a UN mission led by the US. We're talking about 1,200 troops. And one of the first things they do is not just disband the army, but they start a whole new. So when you go to the site of the National Haitian Police, you're going to see that they start counting their existence since this 1996, 94, 93 mark, right? So they were now a new police force trained by this UN army. Okay, so that's that. No more army, but we got a police trained by the same people who used to train the army, right? So that's already the first thing. And so when you see in 2004, what happens is the Brazilians come with this UN mission, right? And they are now the new army, right? They are the ones who are enacting, protecting the kind of interest that the international, right, is invested in. And so they are the actual military presence of the United Nations mission is removed in 2017 in Haiti because Haiti is able to rebuild its army. So essentially, the president said this. This is President Martelly. He said this. He said he asked for the UN mission to be prolonged. He said, we need time to build our own army before you guys leave. Right. So there's a continuation in the logic of these armed forces that they're interchangeable, whether they are, right, local Haitian army police or UN troops. They are all operating within the same logic, which is to control the people of Haiti. Am I saying anything we don't know about the police? You know what I mean? In terms of like what they're supposed to do, right? That they're protecting property, they're protecting capital, whether or not, right, their skin is the color that we share, right? That they are, in fact, right, agents of the state. So, this is not an independent army. I know Evo Morales had this whole thing about how he was going to start like his own like leftist militant like military training. A couple of us like heard about it. We were like, oh, we got to go down there and train, right? But like that's not who trained this police force or this current army that actually exists but hasn't really. I'm not doing anything actually. I have the army has not been ordered to do anything, including fight back the gangs, by the way. They've been asked to sit. there's actually informal conversations with certain police officers who say that we're ready to fight even if we're not as well equipped. He said they say the order is not coming from the top. The state is not giving, right? The executive is not giving the order for them to really crack down on the gangs. So these individuals, and I keep saying, which one of them is going to have that courage and be like, fuck it, I'm taking all the state's, ammunition and I'm fighting back. So this is why a lot of us say these gangs are part of the state project. Because if we're hearing that the state refuses to call like all of its police force to deal with this problem, then it's because this problem is something that they want. These are deductions, but that's what we're left with, right? We got to read the evidence, right? Dr. Ball, it's the evidence.
Okay. No, definitely appreciate that. And I don't know how you are on time. Shout out to Jimmy Kirby. Appreciate you coming through. Good to see you again, brother.
Thank
And
you.
yes,
No,
Dr. Prosper is very clear.
I think I've said as most as I could go on,
Okay.
but I think we've done what we could do.
Okay.
Before you go, one more thing.
Yes.
Um, Contact information for
Yeah.
our audience and contributions. How um, our listeners can contribute to your efforts specifically and to the broader struggle as the larger African
Yes.
diaspora in
Yes.
solidarity with the
Okay.
Haitian Revolution.
So I know I'm supposed to be better at like tweeting and all that stuff. My social media presence is like, minimal. I tweet like
Shameful.
when I really have something important to say, I'll tweet. Otherwise, it's like everything I can't comment on. I feel like I gotta wait for something. But yeah, I do. I could be contacted via Twitter. It's my name, which appears here. Is the handle. I'm gonna start using that when I sign in the future. And I would say if you're gonna donate, um, it's easier to donate through Community Movement Builders. Community Movement Builders does international work in Haiti. We are presently building a community center. It's actually almost complete, and we hope to organize a CMB delegation there 2024. But essentially, the community center is supposed to be similar to what CMB is doing in Atlanta, for example, right, where it's a site to be able to draw people in to do political education, gardening, etc. And it's the headquarters of a particular socialist party in Haiti, which is trying to do a very sort of, if you will, Black Panther Party style work, right? Where it's not just let's talk up here, vote for me, and then you see what I can do. But let me show you what I can do. And right, this may inspire you to vote for us and to have control over the state and do the same. So CMB is supporting that project via me. So if you donate to CMB, then, you know, um, Haiti will benefit that way.
And it's not Kamal's community movement builders.
It's our community.
Dictatorship. Yet another dictatorship. You sure about that?
No, I will say, yes, Kamau is the founder, certainly, but I think that there is a whole lot more democratic decision making that's happening than may appear on the outside.
That's
And
what someone under dictatorship would say.
Oh
oh yeah,
man.
okay, but we know
Blink twice if you need us to
what we
come
do
rescue
have,
you.
what we do have is a very sort of anarchisty style, right? So, we have different chapters, right? Dallas, we have now, Sacramento, right? Everyone's work is going to look like what that community needs, even though we have threads running across all the chapters. So there is a certain autonomy that every chapter has, every member has. My international network Kamal doesn't even know what's happening. So, like he knows, of course, like how you guys know, but
Look,
the
look, look,
details,
look,
I just want
wait,
to, I
wait.
just want to make
No,
sure.
no, no.
I
Look at
want
this. Look at Coco's like,
exactly.
what they
Thank
talk
you.
about? What they
Thank you.
said?
Thank you. Okay. He's an elder. He's an elder who's whose mentorship is important.
His guidance,
Okay, his guidance, but
his
um
emeritus,
and
his
and and,
emeritus.
and like anything else, nothing happens just because there's a figurehead. There are like people on the
Oof.
ground who actually do the work and who are the ones, really who represent and make the organization like an organization to even be talked about.
No,
So
Coco. The question Yipper asked if we were talking about Kamal's community movement builders. So we're Dr. Prosper is cleaning
Kamau.
that up.
I think it's called a fiefdom. I don't know.
so are you,
I don't know.
is it that mean that you're not a member and you won't be joining us?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
I'll join up.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay. And then
let
we
me
will welcome your challenge to the power structure.
Yeah, Dr. Prosper has to get to the baby.
Yes, I do. Well, actually,
No,
my
So
she has to
partner,
go manage her
my
staff,
partner,
the
my partner.
nanny,
Shout out to my partner.
her
Has
staff.
taken the
see how
baby.
progressive she is? She refers to her nanny as partner.
Yeah, we're all a family here.
We're all
It's
a
just
family.
some of
Like
us
when
are
you
more equal than others.
we're not
Yeah,
employees,
Well,
we're a
she has to
family,
go
this
we're a
manage her
partner
team.
staff.
contributed to this baby coming to be. So yes.
Okay, well then in
Okay.
that case, we'll
Yeah.
Oh,
forget. Okay, all right.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
in that case, anyway, Dr. Prosper, thank you very
thank
much.
you.
Thank you for
Anytime,
having me.
please come
Thank you.
through anytime,
Yes.
and
Yes.
thank you for your good work. And
This
peace
is
to you
this
and the
was worth
family.
my waking up at
Good.
5:30 in the morning.
Beautiful.
That's the new commercial for EYL right there.
Yes. Oh,
It
there
was
you go.
worth getting up in the morning. Clip that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Prosper. Take care now.
Thank you.
Peace.